Tonight, we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Today is Thursday, June 16th, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencers Support Association. I'm the former National Chief Investigator for MUFON Canada and the former International Field Investigator Trainer for MUFON in general. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. To super chat, just click the $ next to your name in the comment box below. Tonight's theme is witchcraft teacher / mentor and custom spell practitioner. It's a big one, a heavy load tonight. Our guest for season 4, episode 20 is Fire Lotus the Witch. Fire Lotus the Witch is 29 and currently resides in Florida. They have been a mentor and teacher for almost 5 years and started sharing their practice on a Facebook page, which eventually grew to a YouTube channel where they created a podcast and later became a creator on TikTok. They began researching witchcraft and Wicca around the ages of 11 or 12 and fully started practicing their craft at the age of 13. Fire Lotus has come a very long way and gone through all types of changes when it comes to magic that they practice. Presently, Fire Lotus describes themselves as a witch. They are a witch who practices different types of magic. Those different types being Appalachian folk magic, Southern Conjure Death Magic, and then something they like to call Instinctual Magic. Fire Lotus has worked heavily with their ancestors and land spirits, and depending on the working that they're doing, depends on which deity that they call upon. Fire Lotus is also gifted at being able to channel spirits and continually building their connection and abilities. Most of their channeled messages from spirit come through during client oracle readings. Presently, they have been offering 2 types of community spell work services: a community candle, which is always free, and then the other one depends on the month on which is the specific theme. So you can find Fire Lotus with the description below in our little ticker there, and you can also find them on Linktree at Fire Lotus the Witch. All right, so Fire Lotus, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing this evening?
Hello, and I'm doing really good this evening.
Good, great to hear you. Am I coming in well?
Yeah, you're coming in perfectly clear.
Okay. Good. So we're experiencing a weird phenomenon with an echo. So if I'm talking slowly, it's because I hear the echo and I'm having a hard time dealing with it. All right. So we're going to start with the icebreaker, which is brought to us by Stacey. So I'm going to play a little jingle there, and then we'll answer that question and we'll see where we go.
All right.
All right. So tonight's icebreaker question is: you enter an alternative reality where you realize you're part of the last show or movie you watched. What show / movie is it? And which character are you playing and why?
Oh. I'm trying to think of the last. Technically, the last one I watched, and I'm calling myself out on live internet, was technically Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Okay.
So technically, I guess I would be Kim.
Okay. And you have to say why though.
Honestly, out of all of them, I have no idea. I just like Kim.
Okay, good enough. Fair enough. For me, currently watching Better Call Saul. We just finished season 5 Priscilla, you can hear the echo? Interesting. So I would be have to be Saul because he's a lawyer. And he's crafty and whatnot. So there is an echo. Everybody else can hear the echo. Okay. So I'm not quite sure why that's coming in. Good thing is I'm the only one. He's going to be speaking tonight. So we're going to ask some questions and we'll let him talk. All right. So the first question I always ask is, why are you the way that you are? And what I mean by that is tell me how you got here. Start as far back as you want to go, and walk me through that.
All right. So from like really early, believe it or not, I used to be that kid that was like afraid of my own shadow. Like I was afraid of everything that go bump in the night, but I was also drawn to scary movies, paranormal things that would go bump in the night. And it all changed at around 11 or 12. And I don't know what it was. I kind of discovered a book in the library that was called A Conjure Death Witch, a Story of Witchcraft. And it was just like legit just stories and historical accounts of witchcraft. And it wasn't until the very end, which was the Salem witch trials, that like it kind of clicked in my head. I was like, wait, this is actually a thing. And through that process, I kind of like the older that I got, the more that I was drawn to the creepy, the weird. Like my first paranormal experience, I was a kid, like a baby in my crib, and I was crying for some reason. And I remember seeing this elderly woman kind of like hovering almost above me, but like, or almost like she was standing outside the crib looking down, and I could kind of see through her, but she was also kind of slightly like lit up, almost like if you see a stream of light with like dust kind of moving through it. It like she was comforting me. And then for some reason I remember that. So everything after that just I kind of dove deeper into the spooky, the creepy, the paranormal, Charmed, all of that. And it kind of just drove me more into it.
Then what did you do from there?
From there, I tried to, because I'm from Alabama, small ass town. So I tried gathering as much information, going to the library, surfing online as much as I could at the library, of trying to figure out like why there are ghost spirits, why magic exists, what is magic. And the more that I kept digging into it, the more experiences that I had, which kind of drew me more to kind of doing it. I've been through a lot of trauma. I was bullied in high school, and I kind of got to the point where I was just like, all right, fuck it. You're either going to like me or you're not going to like me. And I just kind of kept going. My favorite saying that I have tattooed on my wrist is just keep swimming. So I kind of just did the same thing where like I would just keep going. And then to be straight up honest, it was kind of like I blinked one day and then I'm just like, I'm here now.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. So I'm trying to deal with this echo. It's a big time. Sorry about that. So tell us a little bit about the types of magic you do.
So originally I started out like most witches do from my age range, which is Wicca. And with Wicca, I kind of got to a point to where I just kind of plateaued, to where like I couldn't go any further. So I started researching different practices, and around the time that I started doing all of this online content, I found what is known as Appalachian folk practice, which from the part of Alabama that I'm in, basically I grew up in the foothills of Appalachia. And there's a book by Jake Richards, Backwoods Witchcraft. And when I read that book, it was like I was reliving my childhood, because a lot of the things that were in that book were things that I was told growing up, but wasn't really considered witchcraft. So I was like, wait, what is this? And then from there, I learned about Southern Conjure. So right now, at my point where I'm at now, I practice Appalachian folk magic, Southern Conjure, death magic, and what I call instinctual magic, which is basically, so we have people that will randomly pick up a paintbrush or an instrument or a sport. And for the very first time, they're just amazing at it. They're really good at it. It just clicks. I believe that the same thing can happen when it comes to practicing magic. It's just something in you that comes instinctual to it. So instead of like most witches where they keep a book of shadows, they go step by steps. When I do most of my spells or rituals, I go into what my partner calls a magical, like the magic mode. My hands start tingling and it's like I go into this trance. And from there, I kind of go to where all of my correspondences and all of my ingredients are, and I will just kind of let my body naturally pick it and eventually make the spell, perform the spell. And I started doing this probably around the age 14 or 15, but I didn't understand what it was. And I would do it, and then I would go and actually look up the ingredients that I used in it, and come to find out it was the actual right correspondence that I used that ingredients for the spell that I used.
Okay. What's your most used spell?
Oh, that's a good one. Currently, right now, it would be either the Respark the Spark spell, and or like a job promotion, or possibly to get a job. Because I started this thing once I started actually taking like clients on for spells, where not every spell is going to match every person. So I have a magical consultation to where I get information like, what's your situation? What is the end goal to this? And after we have that conversation, I have certain spells that I have just up on my page, like fertility spells, to find the next chapter spell. What are some? A honey jar. And then with the custom spells, depending on the situation, is depending on how I formulate that spell.
You want to give me an example?
So say, for perfect example, I had somebody come to me and they wanted to know if they were on the right spiritual path. And another person had told them, well, you need this spell for that. Well, the way that I practice, I was like, no, you don't need a spell for that. You need a reading for that. Or say you came to me with a situation to where you were trying to break out of the cycle of just kind of getting a job, eventually getting bored with that job, having to restart that process all over again. I can formulate a spell depending on what you want to where you can find that perfect job that fits you perfectly. Now, like I tell everybody, magic's not 100% guaranteed, but with a lot of my spells, as long as you do the footwork, then normally I have a very, very high turnover rate, which sounds weird when talking about magic.
So what kind of turnover rate are you expecting?
It kind of, I mean, I don't necessarily expect it, except for as long as the spell in itself works, I'm perfectly okay with that. But when people come to me, I also tell them, like, not every spell is going to work. Like, if magic was like some people think, then I wouldn't be living in a trailer right now. Like, I would be living in this mansion. Yes, at certain points, anything is possible when it comes to witchcraft and magic, but at the same time, you have to do footwork. So the chances of me winning the lottery are probably astonishing. But if I were to put, instead of win the lottery, say you needed $500 to pay a bill or to get your dream car, that's the last amount that you needed. I would do a spell to where either A, you want it, B, like old debt or something like that comes back to you, or the way that I would word the spell, instead of you winning the lottery, it would be specifically you winning the amount of money that you need, whether it would be a little bit more than the 500 or slightly lesser than the 500.
I like that because then it removes greed. I guess. Okay. So let's talk about warlocks. So what is a warlock if it's not a male witch?
So the original term that I learned and researched that warlock means is basically an oath breaker. So the term witch in general, it's like non-binary, but a lot of people some people still kind of look towards that term of like a warlock. And in some magical practices, they will call themselves warlocks and or like a magician. It depends on the practice though, but when some people hear that term warlock due to what Hollywood fantasy books and movies have done, it kind of makes you sound, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm about to say, but it kind of makes people sound like they're LARPing. There's nothing wrong with LARPing, but a lot of people, depending on when they got into witchcraft, when they hear that term, it kind of makes somebody think of Charmed or some type of Hollywood movie, because I think there was a movie series where it was called Warlock. But originally the term meant oath breaker, as in you broke the sacred oath, so you can no longer be trusted.
So anyone can be a warlock, male or female.
Yes. Yes. No, kind of. Warlock specifically is more towards the male aspect versus the term witch being more non-binary, which means anybody could be a witch.
Okay, so what would you call a female that breaks the oath?
I mean, it depends, because when I say the term oath, primarily that was, say, just for the conversation, it would be like more of somebody who joined a coven and then broke that, or joined a brotherhood and then broke that. I personally don't know a term that would be, I mean, theoretically, yes, you could say a woman could also be a warlock, but I'm pretty sure I may be wrong on that, but specifically and historically, warlock or the term has been more towards the male practitioner.
Okay. So, in your opinion, what is the biggest misconception of witches or witchcraft?
Not every witch follows the threefold law, and if somebody does follow the threefold law, they primarily are Wiccan based, and it's a misconception that every person who calls themselves a witch is basically that they follow the threefold law, but that's not true, because the threefold law was originally a poem that got kind of mixed into it being a law, but also in some, depending on what area you read from, originally what they meant by the threefold law was not that you don't do harm to anybody. It means that if somebody fucked with you or messed with you, you take what they threw at you and you return that threefold. But it kind of got mixed up with some of the love and light about how, like, we're not supposed to use spells for our own gain and or harm people or hex people or curse people. It's a Wiccan thing, and due to the fact here in the United States specifically, Wicca was really, really popular, people kind of still have that term that, like, you know, we follow the threefold law. On top of that, witches do not worship and or work with Satan necessarily. Not, at least not the Christian aspect of Satan.
Do you want to clarify on that? What's the difference?
So in certain paths, like, say, traditional witchcraft, they have a figure that is known as the witch father. In other traditions as well, you have somebody, kind of a prime example, in the Salem witch trial, they have the guy who showed up with the black hat in the book. Most people interpret that as Satan, which, true enough, it was, or the devil, if you will, or the horned one or the hoofed one. But it's not the Christian aspect of that. It's just kind of a more aspect of nature, if you will. And a lot of people, even though they left Christianity or Catholics, not really Catholic, well, yeah, Catholics too, when they left it, they still kind of hold some of those beliefs to it. And they don't realize it until somebody says, oh, well, like Appalachian folk magic and Southern conjure, we use the Book of Palms as spells in our, like a very, very powerful chant, if you will. A lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, well, you're practicing witchcraft. The Bible doesn't belong. But with Appalachian folk magic, they didn't see it as like witchcraft that we know today. It was a way of living, and most of them were Christians. So therefore, they figured out a way to use one part of that Bible to kind of step into power and to be able to use it just to get by today to day.
Interesting. So the Bible can be used for witchcraft, or just interpretation?
Primarily the Book of Palms can be used. Not many people that I'm aware of use other aspects. It's specifically, and I don't know the full history of the reason why, but specifically, yes, the Bible can be used, because the way that I view the Bible, just like every other symbol, like the pentagram that I wear, a cross that Christians wear, Catholics wear, the person who's wearing it puts the belief behind it. Just like with witchcraft, not every spell is going to work, but what dictates that is if you believe in your own magic and the energy that you're putting out there. Because my definition of witchcraft is manipulating the ions and atoms and molecules around you to get a desired outcome versus waiting on life to give it to you.
Kind of sounds like alchemy to me.
And honestly, I believe that alchemy and witchcraft are the same thing, because when I do a spell, say I have a spell in front of me where I have 5 candles and 5 crystals and say 2 herbs, I'm going to tap into, and not every witch believes in this, but I'm going to tap into each individual essence, we'll say, instead of spirit, we'll say essence. And then I'm going to get all of them to dance in this perfect tango. So it's transmuting that energy from being different objects to the same mass object with the same goal, and then pushing that out into the universe to get that desired outcome. So I fully believe alchemy and witchcraft, especially modern day times, it's kind of the same thing, with basically witchcraft being science that hasn't yet been proven yet, to a degree.
Yeah, because we're looking at time periods. So when the word witch was coined, the scientific understanding didn't exist.
Exactly, because most witches, quote unquote witches, that they used to like accuse back then, a lot of them were just midwives. They were people who understood that herbs, specifically herbs and different types of chemistry in a way, could be formed together or properly mixed together to actually heal the body or to cleanse the body. But this aspect that people still believe that witches, like in the 16th, 1700, had crystals and all this other shit. Some, depending on where they were, yes, but at the same time, most of them were just wise people. They understood the world around us. Most pharmaceutical medicines, the root ingredient of that comes from an herb. If you have a headache, white willow bark, brewing that as a tea, obviously do your own research, but brewing that as a tea will get rid of that headache and most other small pains like that, because it's a natural painkiller. So they kind of knew that, and then that went against, depending on the era, the Roman Catholic Church Christianity, and they kind of just ran in there and was like, no, if you go against this, that's, evil.
So it was common knowledge. And then too many people had this common knowledge. Then they wanted to take control.
In a way, yes, 100%.
So where did they get the knowledge in the first place?
Now, see, that more goes on kind of more historical aspect, which I don't really study that much, but I'm pretty sure it was passed down through elders or other wise people in the community. And then a lot of people back then are kind of originally, depending on the era, they lived off the earth, which means they knew all the plants. They eventually figured out what all of the plants could and could not do, but that's more as what I call regional, as in depending on the part of the earth that you're talking about, the continent that you're talking about, and the history of that would be a different history.
Makes sense. So a thought came to my mind while you were talking there. You mentioned the Christian cross. Is there an icon like that that is universal to all witches? That's non-binary.
I would either say the pentacle and or the triquetragram and or the Norse compass. I would say those three hands down, and even the cross. The cross has been used and represented in multiple different types of practices as representing the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water.
Okay, so what are the significance of those three? You want to break those down?
Well, the pentagram, depending on who you ask, represents spirit, earth, air, fire, and water becoming basically a whole. Basically us. It's representing us. We have a spirit. We have earth, air, fire, and water inside of us as well. The historical aspects of the compass, the Norse compass, and the triquetragram, I would not be able to like name off word for word like the pentagram, only because I more associate myself with the pentacle, the pentagram, and or pentacle. The difference, one of them being in a circle and a 5-point star in the middle of that, and the other one just being a 5-point star.
So what's the significance of the circle? Does that make it more powerful? Or is it stronger without?
It's kind of, the circle represents a whole, depending on the path that they're on. It could also represent Gaia. It could represent, like I said, protection, as above, so below. It just depends really on the path of the witch and the original teachings that most witches started to learn from, which now is completely different, because back then in the 90s, we kind of just had books, articles, and libraries, or if you were lucky enough to have a computer, you had the slow ass internet. But even back then, there wasn't that much information versus like now, where you have TikTok, where you have YouTube, you have so many other different platforms, blog posts, Tumblr, Reddit, to where now all these witches from all around the world, from all different types of generations, can actually get together and share their knowledge.
So with all this different knowledge, different sources, interpretation, how is it regulated? So that way everyone follows the universal law.
It's not. It's so not. There are some aspects that I totally wish it would. It would discourage some of the discourse that like people see online, but there's this weird thing where it went from just being like witchcraft, paganism, everything that falls under that, to we're in this newer area, as it's been brought front and center to everybody that uses social media, to where spirituality is also being mixed in there. Yes, true enough, in multiple past, spirituality has kind of always been in there, but I'm talking about the new age spirituality. So where you have the star seeds, the quantum leaping, quantum healing, and all of these new things are starting to kind of get mixed in with all of them, because some people have this certain like thought when it comes to being a witch, but in reality, we're normal people. We're doctors, nurses. I'm not, obviously, but doctors, nurses, military, everything in between. And it's just like, if you were to get a gamer, athlete, an artist, and a poet all together, yeah, that's going to be their main source of like, that's going to be their main focus. But they also may love horror books. It's kind of like an onion, and I hate to say that, but every witch is going to have different layers to them. And a lot of the times, those different layers also kind of get blended in with their own personal craft.
And I think that goes to say with a lot of religions, belief system, thoughts, all that stuff. So what would the common goal be, assuming that everyone wants to do good?
I mean, if everybody wanted to do good, it would kind of probably trying to be like heal the world, try to create this eureka place. But the only problem that I have with that is the same problem that I have with like all the meditations that people have done to like center and kind of find world peace. The problem with that is it's not necessarily the fact that it's not going to work, but there are too many components to it, and every individual person is going to have a different definition of what world peace is, which is why it's never worked. There have been certain points in history that witches have gotten together and tried to prevent something, But in general, we don't have the power to heal the world or to create this perfect balance, because in nature, it's loving and cruel. It's sunshiny days mixed with hurricanes and everything in between.
And then that's all the unregulated stuff, the things that we can't talk about, the things that we can't prove, things that we can't work together. So in your own world, like, are you trying to heal the entire world as we know?
Oh, no.
The world that you know.
The world that I know, with me, it would be the world that I know, the people that come to me for either guidance, insights on certain life events that are currently going on, and just in general to kind of make people think. Because yes, I am a witch, but I also have spiritual views. I think all the world religions, they have truths in them, but not all of them are correct. And then on top of that, if we were to humble ourselves just a little bit, the most renowned thought that I ever had was, like when we have a streak of bad luck, we're like, why me? Why is this my life? Why not you? What makes you better than anybody else out there that's struggling in their own ways, that's having their own life? And with me, as long as I can go to sleep knowing that I've changed and or healed or helped one person, that's what this is about. I never had a mentor growing up, so I hope and pray that I can ask questions and help people in a way that I didn't have when I was growing up, specifically while I started the journey of witchcraft.
And that's a nice thing to do. And I commend you for that.
Thank you.
I mean, I can relate to that a little way. But it's good. So we say heed the world or something like that, which means watch the world, pay attention, and do good. So thank you for that. Okay. So what are the benefits of doing witchcraft?
For one, it brings in self-power. Like, eventually you realize through your working that you yourself do have power. Like, you can change, maybe not on a grand scale, but you can change small things. And also with most witches, you wind up also finding your own community, to where no matter what you're going through, you're kind of accepted. No matter how you look, no matter how you think, you're still accepted in some way, shape, or form. And it winds up creating this like bigger world. And then a lot of the experiences that I've had with like spirits and experiencing other things, I was like, oh my God, am I going crazy? Am I the only one that's doing this? And then you wind up meeting another witch.
Okay. So I just realized something, that if I mute you, there's no echo. So
really?
Yeah. So I'm gonna do some fancy stuff coming through here. So the reason why I asked you that, is because I also want to know the negative consequences.
Oh, there are a lot of negative consequences to magic in so many ways. For one, depending on the community, like if you're living in a small town, you're going to get ridiculed. You're going to get judged right off the bat. People are going to think you're worshiping Satan. But it's also, if you don't know how to properly sense spirits or sense the energy, you can really fuck up your life. Like, yeah, we have deities, we have demons, everything in between, which I hate that term demon, but I'll say infernals. But there are also a lot of things that most people say that go bump in the night that you can stumble upon. And if you don't know how to properly fix that, it can really physically fuck up your life. It can fuck up your mental health. So like, it's kind of that balance of, for one, knowing and being able to read and understand the energies that you are communicating with or working with. And then I don't believe in karma. I don't believe necessarily in the threefold law, but I believe in the ripple effect, which is, no matter how big or small you throw a pebble into a pond, it's going to cause some type of effect to where it ripples back to the original point where you tossed it. So that would be the negative. And not to mention, you can invite things into your house that can eventually, over time, through going through certain processes, that can attach itself to you, that can just make everything just worse.
No, I can understand that, because like like everything changes. Whatever path you choose opens up different opportunities and all these other things, whatnot. So I totally relate that. So with terms of magic, do you have you ever seen the result of a change by doing any spells or anything like that?
Oh, multiple times. I'm trying to think of the last one that I've seen. To where I like, it's not just like just a chance, because see, when it comes to spells, and most of my experiences, due to the fact that they're personal, I won't necessarily share some of them, but one of them, and it also kind of goes back to like why I do this. A good friend of mine came to me because they were having trouble kind of creating a family, if you will. So I did a little spell on the full moon. This person had a 1 in 1,000 chance possibly creating a family. And I did it on the full moon. 3 to 4 days later, they had messaged me stating that they were on the beginning steps of creating their family. They currently just celebrated their second family member coming through. Now, if that's science, chance, or magic, I personally believe it was magic, but everybody's going to believe their own things.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I mean, it's magic I always thought was science we don't understand. And then there's coincidence, then there's, but I mean, you're putting intent out there. What we understand with consciousness and the way that the mind works, all these other things kind of fit in that paranormal spectrum too, and it has to be real. We put that intention. I see in the comments a lot of people saying intentions. So what comes to mind is the whole Spider-Man quote with great power comes great responsibility. How does someone like yourself, and then we'll quote Star Wars here, turn over to the dark, not prevent yourself from turning over to the dark side, because you can equally use this ability to do harm.
Well, with me, when I first started my practice, and then with the connected, there's so many things. When I first started my practice, I actually did kind of go into that darker realm, as in I was messing with this spirit that I thought was something else, and come to find out it wasn't. So in this scenario, anything that I asked for, I would get. Every single time I got that object or that thing that I asked for, I would wind up losing something else, as in something else would dramatically happen. And obviously I learned that mistake. And yes, I do baneful workings depending on the situation, because I mean, if I can stop a certain situation, or if I can protect somebody from just throwing somebody's name in a jar with a few other ingredients, then I'm okay with that. And with the connected consciousness, kind of what you were saying about how like we're all connected, I always relay the during 9/11, right before 9/11, we have random number generators placed all around the world. During the morning of 9/11, before that event happened, every single one of those random number generators completely synced up at the exact same time and started printing off the exact same number, which is supposed to be scientifically impossible. They did a study, that same group did a study shortly after that, and went and interviewed people that experienced 9/11. They all said the same thing. They woke up that morning feeling like something was off or something was about to happen. And scientists to this day still cannot explain that phenomenon, that event. But to me, it proves that we're all connected, almost kind of slightly like discoordinated, but like a beehive. We're all connected in some way, shape, or form.
So hive consciousness is something that is kind of known. That's kind of speaking to what you're talking about too. And in order for that to work, it's interesting, because if the world felt collectively that something bad was going to happen, that would mean that the people that were about to do the bad thing had projected enough energy and negative thought out there for it to be received. So it was also just as bad as it was for us, it was also bad for them. And then together, like a lot of stuff went down.
And with that, with what you just said, like they also had to experience that. It's one of the same reasons we say, like with witches, why doing research, why creating your sacred space, whatever that is. The reason, the physical aspect, and the reason you have to do footwork with spells is because, yeah, you're thinking it, but when we move, when we physically do things, we're exerting energy into that purpose of the reason, like creating the sacred circle. You're spending time, sweat, possibly blood into actually creating that sacred circle. So it's showing the universe, okay, they truly are ready and they truly want what they want.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of spells, I consider you mentioned ingredients and adding things and stuff like that too. I would translate that to like a recipe, like when you're going to cook, you put certain things together. You need to get your ingredients to make this beautiful dish that you're going to eat and consume. So how do you get your recipes for these spells? How do you know what ingredients you need and the result?
So most crystals, herbs, depending on your actual craft, random things outside, like a tree, a wasp nest, dirt dauber's nest, they all have correspondences or what they can be applied to in magic. And with the recipe, I'm blown away that you just said that, because on an episode of my podcast, I was interviewing a death witch, and I used that analytic, like I used that phrasing as in like witchcraft is like cooking. The family members may pass down the recipes, but we're all going to add our specific things to it to slightly change it a little bit.
Yeah,
it's the exact same way.
But it's never going to taste as good as grandma's stew.
Yes,
or whatever, right?
Exactly that. And that's kind of the discord now, where like it's almost like the witchy community is trying to kind of gain its bearings as we're on a bigger platform thanks to the internet. We're all over the place now. And we're kind of trying to find that. But with a spell in general, it depends on what you're trying to do. But it also depends on the witch itself. Like with most of my magic, I like to use candle magic, basically burning things. While some other person may use a crystal grid or may use a jar spell. It also depends on the witch. So it's like an artist, or like you said, like a chef. Every different person is going to have their own kind of spin on it.
And then that's where that starts to get creative, and then you can expand on it, and then you can build. So if it's a recipe, if it's something, because like with food, we need to eat, we need to consume it, we need it, it's important. So from your perspective, with these spells, what are essential spells that everyone should learn how to use, and or ingredients, if you will, and maybe there's some ingredients that are bad that should avoid. If I were to translate that, I might be not doing this properly, but I used to cook in another life, so I'm just trying to compare it to ingredients. But what's good food and what's bad food? What's a good spell? What's a bad spell?
So that actually depends on the ethics and the moral of the witch, because there are some witches who will not use any baneful herbs. Most of those baneful herbs, quote unquote baneful, they have poisonous properties to them, like belladonna, nightshade, a beehive or a wasp nest. It can be used for protection, but also baneful. But for a witch, protection, reversal, and defensive magic are some of the top 3 spells or rituals that you need to learn, because just in general, protection's great. Too much can be a bad thing. Reversal magic, to be able to reverse, because a lot of people hyperfixate on, oh my God, somebody on the internet hexed or cursed me. No, you're more likely to self-hex yourself than anybody else. And that's basically stating, like, if I walked up to you right now, randomly picked up a rock, randomly started whispering to that rock, dropped it in your hand and said, you're cursed. Depending on how your brain works, that seed is planted, which means I didn't do anything. I just gave it to you.
And that rock means nothing. It's just the thought.
Exactly. It's the thought. And then what winds up happening is mundane things happen. You lose your keys. You misplace your wallet. Your brain, depending on how it works, associates it with that one incident. And, oh my God, I've been hexed or cursed. and then it kind of grows, and then it snowballs. We can do the same thing to ourselves by starting a spell, but also at the back of our minds thinking that we're never going to be able to do it, that we're never going to be able to accomplish anything. It plants that seed, and if not taken care of, it will repeat and basically just grow out of control.
So then we use objects like candles and crystals for association. So we would associate a positive vibration with the positive intention of thought, whereas the demonic side would associate the skull and crossbones and bloody daggers to do the same thing because their intent is to cause harm. So removing those mediums, is it possible to do magic without any objects?
Yes. One thing I did want to correct, though, the whole demonic term, most people don't use that anymore due to the like Christian tie to it, because the infernals that people know of, or the demons that people know of from the Christian concept, people work with them every day. I've worked with multiple ones. And they're not like they're described. But yes, 100%. One of the main reasons we like to use, like, say, the athame, the wand, the chalice, it's because they're physical tools to help us be able to align and be able to hone in in my practice, I would say the manipulation of energy, or the direction of energy, and how to kind of hone that in. Instead of being like a spotlight, it's a straight line to the area that you're trying to do. But yes, with the aesthetic aspect, with like the skulls and crossbones and stuff like that, yes. Some people also tie their aesthetic into the actual workings that they do, whether that's baneful or non-baneful workings. It just depends on the witch and the style.
Is it possible for a witch to use a skull and a bloody dagger and put positive love out in the world?
Oh, 100%, 100% on that. Because at the end of the day, as much as I hate this term, because it's more than, there's this concept that just setting your intent and just walking away, that's it. And I did an experiment on my TikTok where I set my intent and just, I intended myself to gain $100 through customers that day, versus the next day where I actually went through the steps, looked up the sigils, looked up the runes, created the sigils, found the right herb correspondences to bring in prosperity or customers, and then actually fixed the spell. So there is some magic that's kind of instant, as in you can kind of think of something and it just happens. And then there are more complex things where you have to go through the actual manipulation, transmutation of said energy to actually be able to pull in the thing or push away what you're trying to do. But yes, 100%. Somebody could use like a bloody skull with like a huge dagger and still be able to like heal somebody. It all depends on, at the end of the day, the intent and the footwork that the witch does with the spell work, in my definition.
And I'm totally with you. And where I'm kind of leading to is the judgment. Because if you were to look at the modern witch, or how witches are described, what they wear, what they use, someone who is not familiar with what we've just discussed may assume that it's the negative intent. It does appear perhaps vicious and scary by what we're told because of Hollywood and things like that too. So assuming that the label is removed and no one is judging in this environment, what is up with the the commonality with the way that most witches, dress and work within? And does that have any effect to the spells, or is that just simply the culture?
So it's so interesting you say this too, because I was just talking about this, because I asked, like, why do we have the witchy aesthetic that we have? Yeah. For one, I do believe it kind of stems from, like you said, with what we've seen in Hollywood. Like I grew up on Charmed, Buffy. It also, for a personal witch, it kind of puts us in that power, like having that certain aesthetic kind of makes us feel confident as we're doing said spell. But yes, a lot of people, they'll see that and they're like, oh, well, you're a Satanist and everything like that. But I will say, social media during the Panorama, the pandemic, kind of broke that aspect of, oh, well, if you're a witch, you look like this, because more people kind of came out And they're like, no, we're just everyday people. We may have certain things while we're doing spells like robes and stuff like that. I don't personally, I have one, but I don't really use it. But that has to go into more kind of like ceremonial magic, where each thing that we use, like the witch's hat. What I've learned about it's traditional, and it's also what it represents for me is, and for some other people, is the cone of power, which is the actual pokey part, the stop, and then you have the circle. So what that's supposed to remind us of is that we're centered and we're also balanced, but we're also protected while creating that cone of power, which, depending on what practice you do, is basically what the point of a circle is. It's to raise the energy around you. And the more energy that you raise up through like dancing, drumming, humming, singing, you wind up focusing that. And then when you cut the circle open, it's almost like a magical bomb kind of exploding, where that energy just shoots out to where it can go to actually manifest everything that you're wanting to manifest.
Interesting. So who was the first witch?
Ooh. So I don't have a legit answer, but I can say something that I recently fell down a rabbit hole of, where a lot of people, or some people, believe that Cain from the Bible was one of the first witches. And then some people also believe, which I believe this, Jesus was also a witch. By the definition of what is claimed he did, that is legit. That's witchcraft on a whole new level. But a lot of people do believe that Cain was also one of them. He was one of the first witches, and he learned that from, I think it's called earthbound angels, the angels that fell from heaven but actually stayed on earth. Supposedly there are theories that they taught him what we now know as magic, and that's also one of the reasons that palms throughout history has also been used in witchcraft.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying from what I've heard recently and the rabbit hole that I fell down, but that could just be because I was born Southern Baptist and then switched to Pentecostal and then became a witch. So it could be still at the core value, those Christian values that I try to run away from.
I was just going to say that I've always thought Jesus was a magician, a big old magic trick, or as we in context, has the ability to convince a great deal of people that there's, change the intent. It's thought. And with Psalms, so is it Palms or Psalms? Because I always thought it was Psalms.
I want to say it's Psalms, but my brain is telling me it's Palms. So okay. I'm not for sure on that either.
So what's interesting with that is those were kind of, well, I'm thinking of the Proverbs, but I mean, those were all anecdotes in the sense of things that Jesus had done. So if Jesus had the ability to change, water into wine, is that a angelic thing, a godly thing, or is that a witch thing?
Oh, that's actually a good question, because I believe it's kind of a mixture of both. My entire belief right now, from what we've heard in legends and lores from way back then, even before the Bible, I believe due to the fact that we did evolve, we gained electricity, we gained cell phones, we gained technology. We kind of went away and kind of turned away from what people way back then were doing. They were more in tune with the earth because they were constantly walking it barefooted. They were constantly sleeping on it. They were constantly growing gardens and stuff like that. So I believe in the process of that. And then when not just Christianity, but primarily I'll say the church, when the church kind of started dominating everything, the belief in magic kind of started dying out. So it kind of almost, if you will, kind of went to sleep. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to the point of supposedly what Jesus Christ did. I hope one day we can, but I mean, who knows?
Well, then we're talking about miracles and we're talking about things that we don't understand in the science. So Jesus is just the current that, that is, I wouldn't say copied, but I mean, duplicated or similar to earlier religions. So the sole concept of magic, has existed way back then. It's just our interpretation. So, I mean, and if they had the ability to do these things, then it would make sense that in the future, when Jesus was born, that he was able to do that, because it's traditionally carried on, which is why all these things are happening too. So I kind of want to segue into, before I get into that part, where you mentioned you didn't like the word demon. So tell me why you don't like demon, and what, I think you said infernals is what you prefer to call that. So what's the difference, and why, elaborate on that.
So with the infernal aspect, I've learned that in the occult world and witchcraft world, the infernals, I'm not 100% on this, but the infernals are basically a lot of demons, not all of them, but a lot of demons that were portrayed in religious text. The reason I don't like using the term demon is because it kind of automatically stereotypes a person who, if you hear the term, oh, where I work with a demon, you automatically think evil. You automatically think like bad, negative. In reality, they're not. Yes, can you come across negative or harmful spirits or even deities? Yes, 100%. But a lot of what we learned about said demons was from one perspective, and most of those perspectives, depending on how you grew up, were from a religious aspect. And in most religions, demon is like the good or bad. And you kind of get to a point to where you realize, yeah, there's good and bad, there's negative and positive. But personally, for me, I just don't like the term demon because it comes with such a bad taste, to where, like, with Zach, the ghost hunter, I used to watch his show all the time. The one thing that I hated, the two things that I hated every single time a witch was involved, it was evil. And then the second time you hear 3 knocks, it's automatically a demon. And I'm like, demons are not just waiting around to try to jump in this like holy vessel of a person. A lot of the times knocking on wood 3 times, that came from, I believe, a Celtic or Druid belief that spirits had trees. Knocking on them 3 times wakes them up. So that's kind of where the whole term of knocking on wood 3 times to like cancel out a hex came from. And when we the aspect of demons or in paranormal, when people hear 3 knocks, they automatically think that it's a demon trying to mock the Holy Trinity. But that's also a narrative that Hollywood and a lot of other paranormal cases have based upon and kind of pushed it on us.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll meet you here. So there's a lot of that. It's interpretation from us. It's instilled by Hollywood. Hollywood puts in that thought. We think it. We watch it from 50 some odd years, and then we start to believe it. Now here we are trying to reprogram the thought. But when it all comes down to it, it's just an event. So these knocks are knocks. And you're going to have a variance of different people in understanding and belief system that will interpret that knock as coincidence, nothing, science, whatever, it's just odd and weird, a scary phenomenon, or even a positive. It could be angelic. So in terms of, so how does the knock actually happen? Let's not try to judge and interpret the intent. How does something from another place in time create that noise that we're able to, intercept?
That's actually, I mean, for one, that's a very good question. I don't necessarily have an answer to. I'm still working on that. Is one of the reasons I kind of led me down the path of witchcraft, because I want to know what the experiences I've experienced when it comes from spirit were. But it was something that you said I've also been trying to tell people. When it comes to witchcraft, all of witchcraft is basically an unpersonal or a personal unverified experience. In other words, most of the things, unless it's in a coven or a group aspect, none of us are going to experience the same. We may be able to create a list of how energy feels, but due to the fact that we're so unique and individual, our own bodies are going to interpret spirit or magic or energy completely different. And that's the hard part when it comes to like witchcraft and even paranormal. You can get 3 people in the same room to experience the same thing, but because of how most of our brains work, especially if you have trauma, when you ask them about it 5 to 10 to 20 minutes later, there may be subtle changes. But it's the ones where no matter how much time has passed, they exactly remember everything that happened. That kind of piques my curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our sponsors. If you're listening to the audio-only version, head over to youtube.com/The Experiential Support Association so you see the video that goes with this audio. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiential Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference or take a class or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today by going to tesacan.org/EA. That's TESACAN.org/EA.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrial, dogman, or any other paracryptid? Head over to our website. This is the new one, www.experiencersupport.org, and submit a report. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. I am still here with Fire Lotus the Witch. How you doing?
Good.
Still good? Oh, where'd you go? Uh-oh. He disappeared. He just left. Hopefully he comes back. Uh-oh. Stacey, you want to pop in and tag team this year until he comes back? Oh, nope, there he is. There you go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
All right. Okay, so what about so we talked about witches. We talked about the spell, the magic, and the conjuring, and all that. And that is you and other witches alike trying to put that intent out into what we call the alter spectrum, so the ether, the other space, the upside down, whatever you want to call it. How about the other way around, like receiving, so channeling? Do you ever receive messages or channel with spirit or demon? Well, you don't channel with demons, but I mean, do you receive, from other witches or other places? What do you think?
I do. Here recently, I mean, I've always been able to kind of know things. I have claircognizance, which means I have clear knowing. One example, my partner's mother passed away when he was 13, way before I was even a thing. I moved down here and I used to stay on the same property that she also lived on. And when I first got there, in my head, I pictured that they had their driveway, specifically this certain structure in the middle of it. So fast forward 2.5 years, me already being down here, we're at a cookout at my father-in-law's place. And I tell him, I was like, yeah, I'm really bummed that y'all never got to do the, basically it was like this Western style structure with rocks and stuff that you would see like in Arizona with a cow skull and an alligator skull. And he looked at me, this is a very, very religious man. He looked at me and he turned pale white and he looked at my partner and he goes, you told him, didn't you? And my partner's like, no, I didn't. He knew it. It was exactly what his wife wanted. And recently, since I started reading oracle cards, there was one particular incident. I was prepping my space to read this person, and I started singing Disney tunes, specifically The Jungle Book, one of the bare necessities in that. And I stopped myself right? I was like, wait, I have not heard this or listened to this in probably 3 or 4 years. What is this? And as soon as I asked that, I got a chill completely up my shoulder. And after that, it was just like, I'm going to keep things private, but it was basically one of their family members that had recently passed away. Not recently, but had passed away in the past 10 years. So when I gave her reading, I was like, hey, I don't normally do this, but this is from the energy that I feel. Come to find out, it was a direct family member that had, like I said, had passed away, and he used to go about singing those tunes. And my partner's family, I can channel like that, and it's just kind of, it's almost like I can separate what's my own thoughts versus what's coming in, because when I do channel, not that I'm still learning it, but I wind up taking on either aspects of that person or like phrases that they would use or even body language that they would use, which is different from what I normally do. But I fully believe, and then sometimes you'll get a ringing in the ear, which I call a download. And some people say, depending on which side, it's depending on like if it's coming directly to the universe or if it's coming from spirit guide. But I believe it's also going back to kind of the connected consciousness. It's the Akasha records. Basically, anything that could happen, will happen, or has happened. Each individual person say there's a giant book that they have. I believe that when we get that information that we should not know, but we do know it, I believe we're also in a way possibly accessing the Akasha records as well.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. It's got to come from somewhere. We got to pull from a source. We all should have a common source. It's just interpretations that have been changing over the years. I'm totally on board with that. So, would witchcraft be a religion?
It can be, and that's where it kind of gets tricky, because Wicca is actually, and technically, even in the United States, I don't know about Canada, but in the United States, it's recognized federally as a religion. So you can be religious and practice Wicca, but not be a witch. But you can be a witch, not be religious, and practice Wicca. It just depends on the, we'll say, the branch of Wicca that you're trying to practice.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure of the laws we have here. I know it was decriminalized recently, but it used to be against the law to practice witchcraft here in Canada, which is kind of interesting because that would mean that it worked. Why would it? Why would you outlaw it? In a sense. So, what is Wicca then?
Wicca, oh God. Depending on the practice, it is more of an earth-based religion. They have the goddess, they have the god. They believe, most of them, not all. Again, Wicca now is kind of an umbrella term because there are so many different types of Wicca. But it is a very earth-based. You're saving the planet. You're doing everything you can to help the environment, not necessarily going vegan or vegetarian. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but being more in depth, kind of being in the community. And here recently, I'd say in the past 30 years, just because of the internet, so it's more mainstream now, or more public, a lot of people have becoming justice warriors, standing up for certain rights and everything like that, becoming an activist. That would kind of be my very rogue definition of it. I haven't really practiced Wicca since I was about 17-ish.
So it's more so of like a commitment then, I guess. So you can practice it and do it here and there, but then it's kind of like any religion, I guess. You join the club, you're with a monk,
To a degree, Wicca, and for anybody who is trying to kind of look into witchcraft, I would either suggest folk magic and or Wicca, specifically Wicca, because it's very organized and it's very structured. And they have a lot of like daily rituals or daily spells. And the reason they have that is to be able to get you into, because a lot of people, they ask me, they're like, well, you make all this content, because I try to cover every platform. They're like, how do you do your own personal practice? It's because I've reached a point to where everything that I do in some way, shape, or form has a bit of magic to it. I have depression and other mental things. So me getting up, taking a shower, I could dedicate that process to an ancestor, because what am I doing? At the end of the day, I'm making sure my body, my temple is clean, it's taken care of. And everything we do, stirring coffee, you can stir in the intentions of your coffee, knocking on wood. A lot of people practice or do witchcraft on a regular day basis. They just don't really say it's witchcraft, like manifestation, using angel numbers. All of that falls under the realms of magic, but they don't see it like that.
What's the difference between magic with a C and magic with a K?
From what I understand, one of them basically is actually the one that I use, which is without the K. It's actually witchcraft. The other one is more stage magic, the more the actual like Houdini, the pulling stuff from a hat. But I may be slightly wrong because I do know there are some magicians in the occult world and or witchcraft world that actually prefer with a K versus with the other one.
So no real big difference, just a different way of spelling it, kind of like adding that extra level to segregate a community within a community, if you will.
Yes, depending on, there are some people that like if they see it spelt with a K, they will automatically like not respect it or not necessarily pay any attention to it. It's very weird.
Yeah, because I always thought that the K was like the dark magic, the dark intent. Whereas the one with the C was the magician. I thought it was the other way around.
Oh, well, I may have it backwards. I am dyslexic.
I don't have. We don't have a fact checker here, so it's okay. So it's either or, but there's clearly a distinctive difference between it. It sounds the same phonetically. It's the same. Perhaps it is the same, and then over translation, over time the K was dropped or the K was added. Nonetheless, it still comes down to intent. So the ability exists in all of us. We all have the means to do it. It comes down to our intention. So if we intend to use it for harm, then you get the K. If you don't, then you lose the K in terms of that. So interesting. So what about, like you mentioned paranormal earlier, right? So we're all about supporting experiencers that have been affected by or experienced any paranormal activity, alien activity, UFO, psychogenic is what we call it, so activity of the mind, consciousness. Where do you, like in a scientific spectrum, where would you place this, witchcraft or this ability, if you will?
Witchcraft, I would place it kind of in the middle between spirits. Actually, yes, I would place it kind of like what most people think of like Middle Earth. We would be Middle Earth, and then there would be either, and I hate using this way that I'm about to say it, but the theory that I used to have, and one of the first people that I really started kind of practicing with, we developed a kind of like, say there are 8 levels of existence. Depending on the spirit or entity that you're talking to, would either be on the higher planes or the lower planes. In a scientific level, it would either be a higher vibration or lower vibration. We're in the middle due to the fact that depending on what we're doing, we can either go higher or lower. So it's kind of like we'll have one foot in the reality, in our normal mundane reality, and then we'll also have one foot in the spiritual reality. And the spiritual realm, it's also broken up into sections depending on what type of energy or frequency you're talking about.
So mainstream would call that paranormal or parapsychology? Well,
yes.
Okay. So do you consider it to be not normal? Because paranormal simply means something that is not normal. But we've been talking, it appears to be normal.
See, I think it is normal because it's just like how people say the sixth sense, being psychic, it's a supernatural power. It's really not, though. At the end of the day, it's nature. It's part of nature. It's more natural than, well, the world that we live in now. And I do believe that, yeah, I wouldn't really say it's paranormal, but at the same time, it's just normal. It's nature. We just don't necessarily have the devices and the technology to fully pick up and or see it just yet. But I believe it's definitely coming.
So if it's normal, we put this normality around it today, but we have to go back in the past to understand like all the aggression and fighting that our ancestors had to do just so we could talk about it so freely today. So in your opinion, with it being normal, why all the burning back in Salem?
Religion. The most simplest answer, religion, because religion in my head, not all of them, because there are some that aren't necessarily like this, but most religions, it's always that scale, that good or evil scale, that you do this perfect thing or it doesn't work. And witchcraft gives a person power. It gives them a power to where they don't have to go to the same place in a congregation and do the same things over and over again. They can actually take life in their own hands.
Okay, so follow me on this, and I'm going to be very careful with how I'm walking through this. But back in the Salem witch trials, the assumption that, and it was always females that were burned at the stake for allegedly being a witch, which, they could be witch or they could be just intelligent women that are smarter than the men, and there's some fear and all these other things that you want to get into. So if the idea of being a witch is normal and men have the ability to be a witch, since it's a non-binary thing, why weren't the men at that time accepting the women at that time as being a witch if they were capable of doing the same?
So I did want to just say one thing, and I understand you probably did not mean to clarify it that way. No witches were actually burned in Salem. Now, in other states in the United States, older ones, they actually were burned. But there was one male that was actually arrested for witchcraft. His name was Corey Giles, and he was crushed to death versus being hanged. And the reason that was because back then, if you were accused of being a witch, all of your property became the church back then, basically the government. Right. So Corey Giles, he was crushed because he would not commit if he was or wasn't. But specifically, it's kind of the man, and I hate to say that, but it's Christianity, really. It's pilgrimage. It's being that pure thing. And back then, men were the authoritating one. It's also very interesting, like you just said, not many men were kind of accused of that. But when it comes to some of those cases about the man in black, it was always a man versus it being a woman that met with them. So I think it had to do with that control. And back then, men were kind of like the apex, if you will, and females.
If you go further back, the women were more in power up to that point. And then it stopped. And then now we're starting to come back into that. So women were always powerful back in the day, and then there's that suppression. So you're right in the point where this controlled religion came in, a decision was made. Too many things are going on in that sense too. So now that we're in this new age where we're, again, like, it doesn't matter. We're starting to understand that there is no divide. We're all capable of doing these things. How do we work together? How do, men and women are equal now? Like, things have changed, and that's great. A lot of things, we don't have to worry about that. So why haven't the witches taken over? Because you guys can change and manifest and heal the world.
Two things. I also love how you worded that. Two things. For one, like I said earlier, with the like trying to create a utopia, due to the fact that we're so indifferent and we're so unique, we're all going to have different definitions. And then thanks to specifically social media, because like on social media, if you play your cards right, overnight, you go from being an absolutely nobody to hundreds of thousands of people following you, wanting to know your opinion. Right. It feeds into the ego, which is where the spirituality aspect comes in, because most spiritualities, they teach you to kind of conquer your ego, or what most people call nowadays your shadow self. Conquer that, become balanced with that. But we have so many different opinions on, even with Christians nowadays. You get a Pentecostal, a Catholic, a Baptist, Presbyterian, a Jehovah's Witness together in the same room, and they're all going to argue who's right and who's wrong. That's the ego aspect of us being humans. And if we were to ever, because here in the United States, at least 1 to 2 times they actually did. The witchy community got together long enough to actually create a council of witches, and that was primarily when they were actually trying to get Wicca federally recognized as a holiday. That way, primarily with vets, if they were a Norse or if they were a Wiccan after they passed away, they would be able to actually put those symbols that represent them on their graves. But other than that, it's a really good question, and there are multiple people that are trying to. So instead of all coming together fully as a community, what I've been realizing, especially thanks to Discord and everything like that, that we've kind of created our own smaller intersections of like small little neighborhoods, if you will. And the one thing that kind of relates all of us is we know every other person. So we're kind of all united, but at the same time, we're very separated at the same time. It's almost a paradox, it kind of, in my head it is.
Yeah, I think it comes down to fear and control and power and all that other stuff. And it was operating in such a way, and there was a need to change at that time. And then now we're at a stage where that way doesn't work anymore. And I think the way, and I hope that the world that we're ending up to is more balance, more unity, where we're working together. Everything is balanced and equal, aces in places, if you will. And anyone can identify as anything. We see a lot of unity, a lot of things that were not accepted a long time ago that are now accepted. Now that we have the keys, now that we're able to do anything we want, we still got a lot of hate, we still got a lot of violence, we still got a lot of things. But I think as we continue to go, we might be in this, what I call the that's not the right word, the transitional generation. And our job is to get the next ones ready for the new world. Because we're not going backwards, we're not going forwards. We may not see in this lifetime witches and aliens and ghosts and paranormal, but we know they're coming because we can't go back to the dark ages. I mean, I guess we could. I just hope that happens after this chapter I'm going. I don't want to go through that.
And it's also...
It's interesting times.
And what you said is amazing because a lot of the things that we've been talking about is also taught. Not making it about this, but like racism, homophobia, things like that, it's taught. And all of us are the people that are waking up and realizing how our ancestors had it wrong, and we're correcting that, and it's being passed on to the generations after this. And as long as we can keep that up, and then with the pandemic that broke out, it kind of repeated history as in kind of the Black Plague and then the Renaissance. So many people for the first time in a long time had nothing but time on their hands. So they dove into spirituality, to witchcraft, to try to find these answers, to art, to everything else. And it birthed so much new things. So I 100% agree with you on that a very slow process, but we are definitely advancing more to be able to create what most people consider not necessarily eureka, but a better world. I don't think
we're advancing. I think we're going back to the way that it was. Because if you go further back to where it started being oppressed, and you follow history, like even in Egypt, you know, the skin color was that of African American. It's dark, you know, and they're powerful, and the leaders were, and the pharaohs, Cleopatra was a female. Even go even further back. You know, and homosexuality was common because that's all that was available during the wars and things like that too. So all these things that we're now at, you know, happened then.
We're kind of relearning and remembering them.
Right. So why do you think world or society decided to say enough of that? And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we need to go back to the way that it was.
I think honestly, it was the pandemic. It was the first time the entire world, every normal thing that most generations were taught would never happen, happened. The entire earth in a few months completely just stopped. And it was thanks to social media, really, because social media gave everybody a way to be like, to show everything, all these thoughts and actions and events that at one point in time, we just thought that like individually we were just experiencing, and then it showed everybody, oh shit, wait, no.
Right.
A lot of other people are going through this. So it kind of brought us together. And due to that, because I'm a huge believer in the reason we have history is to make sure it never repeats. But with, say, which I'm not really going to get into that much, but with shaman or shamanism, the core principles, so not the actual actions and everything that they do in their practice, but the core principles, when most people learn about it, they always say the same thing, which is, it's like I already knew this knowledge, but I'm just now remembering it. And some witches will say the same thing. When they start learning certain things, it was almost like it's in our DNA. And there are scientific experiments to kind of prove that, to where certain events, memories, or instinctual things can be passed down through genetics. And I think magic in general, we're kind of, or spirituality, if you will, we're kind of tapping back into that more primal, like you said, way back then before everything kind of just got mishmash. We're tapping back into that.
It's interesting too. A thought came in because, like, I was on a show not too long, a few months back, and they quoted me something that I said, and that was, "We have to remember who we were,
yes,
to understand who we are."
Yes, 100%.
Right. So there's this thing in between the book burning, all this other stuff. A decision was made. Nope, that's enough. And then here we are. Now we're starting to come back. This is a beautiful place to end up to, and I hope that the fighting is going to come to an end, and then we can live in this world that we've been trying to create, and all these other things as well. So you mentioned Norse a couple times. I'm very interested in Norse mythology. Currently very involved with Norse mythology. How would Freya, is a god in Norse mythology, but she's also a witch. So what is your connection to Norse mythology, and you keep referencing it? So do you have a connection to Norse?
I do, actually. For one, kind of sappy and everything, but the necklace that I have, it's the Norse compass. It's actually mine and my partner's engagement necklace, but I work with Freya because I've kind of known as the crazy cat person. I have a lot of cats. And I've been told by multiple other practitioners that Freya kind of hangs out here because of the cats. And I've slowly built a relationship with her where when I was 18 or 19, I had an experience where I was kind of messed up experience, but I was basically kind of sleeping out in a car on my parents' house, or my parents' property. And this hawk started to circle around the property in the daytime, screeching nonstop. And everybody else is asleep, and I'm outside just kind of pacing around trying to figure out my next step. And I had my headphones in, and out of nowhere, about 5 feet in front of me, this same hawk flies down and lands on this swing set and makes eye contact with me for about 5 minutes. And that exact same moment, I was like, everything is okay. Well, fast forward to where I am now, I never realized, because I always have hawks around me, I never realized that Freya has been also associated with hawks. So it kind of blew my mind that I may not truly follow the Norse path. My partner's very drawn to it, but I haven't done like the research and the history and everything like that. But I'm still drawn to it. And with Freya, I work with her, and I also work with Loki, which is slightly a newer experience.
It's interesting with the relation. Like I do recently have discovered that I relate the most to Norse mythology, but I cannot grow a beard to save my life. So evidence would show.
I'm the same way.
Evidence would show perhaps that maybe that's not true. But I dream, man. That so there's man can dream. But anyways, no, that's good. No, full disclosure, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla for a while too. So, but things like that. There's a lot of history in video games too, and soft disclosure, and the magic is there. The realms are there.
I actually believe that in modern day times, the deities are kind of using like video games, Hollywood movies, and stuff like that to kind of bring back. True enough, it's not accurate. Not all of it is accurate, but it still plants the seed of the idea that. And
when we're sitting comfortable with it, is it familiar, or we accept it? Like, it's all testing it too, right? Because then we all know how we react to evil things and bad things, but then why do we have this connection? Why do we have this sense of bliss, if you will, when we see the past? They also have problems and war and all these other stuff and chaos, but yet we feel like we are connected. We feel like we belong in the past. And so that would make sense if that's where we came from. When you talked about the Akashic records and genetic memory. So that's one of the main things in Assassin's Creed. They got, again, a video game, but on the concept that they're taking someone in the present, examining their DNA, tapping into their consciousness, and going back through the blood to their ancestries to find out where something is in present time. So how long ago was that? Is it really that long ago? Or is it now?
Yep. And it's almost like listening to, like with me, I can listen to Celtic music, and no matter where I am, it's just like I'm home. But it's like this deep feeling inside where it's just like, holy shit, I've heard this before, but in a different setting. And I think it's what you just said. I think it's our DNA or our soul or our energy. It's remembering a time before. And
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, and in that, it's also a way that we connect with our ancestors, and a way that gods and goddesses and magic live on. Because when most people when they discover witchcraft, most of them always say the same thing. For the first time in my living life, I felt like I found home.
Yeah. And in Norse mythology, you have magic, you have females in power. You have connections with Aboriginal, Indigenous people. You have all of these, this society that worked quite well, other than the savages that's going on with all that other stuff, the way they dealt with stuff. But I mean, and not saying that's the way it needs to be, but it seems right. So where did that all go? Is it still in the north? All these other things. But the hive consciousness, right? When we're channeling and we're bringing in and we're trying to do all these things, and you mentioned Freya, so Freya is your deity of choice, I would assume.
Kind of. I don't really. I work with multiple deities, but I primarily work with my ancestor. If that makes any sense.
Okay.
So like I talk to her, I know when she's here, she'll kind of leave sometimes, but like I don't have like what most people think a witch has, like an entire altar dedicated to her or anything like that. But I have my own personal way that I connect to her if she calls. Like I can randomly, because I have multiple cats outside, and if I don't see one of them in a while, I'm like, hey, Freya, if you will, can you please say Grandpa? One of them is named Grandpa. I'm like, can you tell Grandpa to come home? And almost every single time I do that, within 5 to 10 minutes, the cat is showing up and it's meowing at me like, yo, what's up? So I believe it's all connected in some weird way that I don't think anybody has found words for, but we all sense it.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk more about you teach too, right? You're a mentor.
Yes.
You want to get into that a little bit?
Oh yeah. So I use most of my content as the kind of mentoringship. I have a Discord, and everybody in that Discord, we kind of basically just help anybody out. It is primarily 18 plus. There is a small server in it for like 17 plus, but due to some of the subjects we go over, it's primarily 18 plus. And then I started out on Facebook, moved to YouTube. So I go live on YouTube Monday through Thursday most of the time for starting around 10:30 to 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, AM. And it's called Live Witches Chats. So depending on sometimes I'll have a specific subject up. Other times it's kind of free flowing. And then my TikToks, Fire Lotus the Witch, and then Fire Lotus the Witch 2.0. I use most of those videos to kind of mentor. And then if anybody ever has a magical question, or if you want custom spell work or an oracle reading, you can email me at firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. And the reason I started that is because I believe at a certain extent, knowledge should be free for everybody. And some witches online, they make it slightly hard to kind of just ask a question, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm a baby witch. No, you're not. You're not a baby witch. That's degrading. You are a witch in training. In my community, we call it seedlings, lotuses, and sprouts, aka everybody starts from a seed and they eventually sprout out. But there's no such thing as a dumb question. I've had people ask me questions that I've never asked, and I'm like, oh, holy shit, you just put that in a new perspective. And a lot of witches, due to like finances and stuff like that, they can't get the items and information that they need. So I eventually started all of this, and that's what it's for. I have a book list of all the books that I have in my practice. Any new book that I do get, I'll read it, I'll review it, I'll talk about it and be like, yo, this is a really good book. And then next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that, if everything goes as well, I will actually be holding my first ever Zoom class.
Oh.
So yeah,
it's gonna all this on your own.
Yes, I have people.
Good for you.
Thank you. I have people in my Discord that help me out, like I have monitors and stuff. But other than that, every day except for primarily Saturdays and Sundays, but Monday through Friday, I'm either answering questions, making content, trying to do everything I can.
I haven't been able to figure out TikTok. I mean, I'm on there. I do a couple things. I did a couple videos. People watch it, but I can't find myself to do a TikTok every day. So good job for you.
Thank you.
I've been told to do that, but I can't. I don't know. So that's good. So they can find it by emailing you or on your Facebook page. What's the name of your channels?
My everything online is Fire Lotus the Witch. You'll be able to find that on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And then with my podcast, it's Fire Lotus the Witch. My Instagram podcast is Fire Lotus the Witch Podcast. But specifically because a lot of people kind of stopped using Facebook. I primarily now just go through email because I can keep up with it, and that's where I do most of my readings from, because I do have anxiety. So if I'm by myself reading the cards, I don't have to worry about like my anxiety interfering with it or anything. So yeah, social media, Fire Lotus the Witch, and then my email, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, so we made it to the end. I have a couple other questions, but we do have a section here that I wanna start with, and then it's our final segment. It's called Sorry Not Sorry. So I'm gonna play the little jingle here. 1 second. All right, so this segment, it's more of a social experiment. It's just me trying to emphasize a point which we already expressed in this entire episode, that there's variance of different opinions and we can't agree on some things. And I just kind of want to use the most outrageous experience or belief in some things to kind of prove the point that even when we have science telling us one thing or another, not everyone has the same answer, even though it's right in front of us. So here are the rules. I'm going to ask you one question, and I'm going to time you how long it takes you to answer it, and then we'll go from there. Okay, no judgment. All right, are you ready?
Okay. Yep, I'm ready.
All right. So with all the knowledge and experience that you have and information from what you're channeling, what shape is the Earth?
Round.
It took you a little bit there. You had to think about that. Why did you have to think about that? Why did you have to
I don't know. I wasn't expecting that question. I was like, okay, it'll be a witchy question. And then all of a sudden, and my brain is like, wait, what is it?
Yeah, so we don't know what the correct answer is because there's so many different beliefs.
This
so many
is
different
true.
Understandings.
This is true.
A lot of people and we didn't get into this episode. And as our following knows, I love the paranormal consciousness topics because it's not stressful. That's why I always have a good time. Ufology is dark and dingy and all that other stuff too. But if we can't agree on what shape the Earth is, then we should be more accepting of all these other beliefs and systems and all this other stuff and work together. And that's so that's the whole point. And we ask everybody on the show just to throw them off to see what they say. And not too many people say round, believe it or not. So that was a safe guess.
Wow.
Now, round as in a globe or round as in like,
I would say a bubble. I would say a bubble.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that went pretty quick. So let's go into experiences. Have you ever had a profound experience that you're willing to share with anyone? Something that would be able to.
I do, and you may find this interesting because you like the paranormal realm. So, sleep paralysis. It's supposed to be, depending on how you believe it, it's supposed to be kind of like dreams. We're not supposed to share them. We're not supposed to have the same experiences or anything like that. When we first moved into the place that I'm living now, me and my partner both, for a week straight, had sleep paralysis, both at the same time and the same night. We slightly experienced different things, and the last time that I had it, which still to this day scares the entire shit out of me, we have a purple sheet separating the one room from the other room. And I was asleep. I kind of woke up, had that oh my God, something's coming. And I kept flashing into the kitchen. And all of a sudden I saw a body walk in at first because we have bells hanging from our door. So I'm used to that sound. I heard the door open and I see this very, very tall, slender figure walk in. I can't get any details. And the sheet that we have that separates from where we sleep from the room that I'm talking about, out of nowhere, and it's a purple sheet, out of nowhere, I see this hand kind of do like this, like it was grabbing it to try to pull it like this, except for the fingers were a mixture of what you would see in a mummy movie, not with the shit wrapped around it, but the almost completely dehydrated part where the skin's sticking to it. And it was a mixture of between this smoky gray and this smoky black. And the face, I could see it, but I couldn't see it at the same time. And my entire heart is racing out of this. Is probably the most scared that I've ever been in my life. And about the time that it fully pulls it back and I see slightly this side of its face, I woke up. I finally snapped out of it. My partner experienced similar experiences, but more with a very tall kind of black silhouette figure. Scared the teetotal shit out of me. And it's actually one of the main reasons, or the main, my first Facebook post on my Facebook page was that experience, because I don't know what it is. I believe in aliens. Obviously, we cannot be the only intelligent beings out there. But it reminded me of either a mixture between most people think of a gray, or possibly most people, and I hate using this term, most people would think of the demon, a mixture of them both. And I've never forgotten that about that experience. I've never been able to recreate it or kind of re-trigger it like I want to, because I want to know what it was. But that would probably be the most profound recent paranormal or whatever category that falls into.
So how would you connect that with your comfortability in terms of accepting the phenomenon? So you identify as a witch and you have a shadow figure presenting itself. Sleep paralysis is a symptom. We're not quite sure what factors are in place to allow that to happen. And we're not quite sure if the shadow figure itself or the entities are directly responsible for causing it. You could be in this wake state where you're seeing things in a different dimension or things like that too. So how do you, as a witch, explain what that is? Don't worry about assigning it to paranormal or extraterrestrial.
I would say interdimensional. I would have to say interdimensional, because the reason that was so for noun is because one of the same reasons we create a sacred space, whether that be a circle, a crossroad, is because it's an in-between. So a quick trick to get you to see auras for the first time: get somebody to stand behind a solid white sheet or solid white wall. You're going to stare at them like an inch past their shoulder or face, and you're going to keep staring at them. The entire point of that is to break and to throw off the concentration of your eyes, which is also an in-between. It's a linear space. Sleep paralysis is also a linear space. It's an in-between. It's not there. It's not here. And I believe that is going to be the very core key that kind of unlocks everything that we talked about, whether that's interdimensional, aliens, ghosts, spirits, everything in between. It's when we break I would say what's programmed with our bodies to focus or concentrate. It's when we break that, it's when we start experiencing things that cannot be seen by the everyday eye.
Where are they in between? That's how
they're right here.
That's how we're able to see them. But what are they doing all day long?
They're right here in front of us. Imagine layers on top of layers on the exact same 3D map. It's just multiple layers. And depending on what you're doing, whether you're trying to go higher or lower, you're altering your state of mind. So therefore, you're being able to tap in and to experience and or see things that are in the in-between. But in reality, they're all around us every single day. It's just they're on a different frequency level. And sometimes they kind of cross over or purposely cross over.
What if somebody doesn't believe? Does all this stuff still work?
Yes, but they normally say one or two things. Either A, I didn't see it, I didn't believe it, that may be a trauma response, or the one word I hate, which is coincidence. I believe the term coincidence was made up or made or created to explain the things that just cannot be explained, that shakes a person to its core, whether that's a religious belief or a scientific belief, to where they're like, I don't care what you saw, even though they're there, I did not experience that. It's because it breaks their psyche, because for the first time, they just experienced something that cannot be physical, that cannot be explained in black and white by writing it down on paper. So I think it's also an actual defense mechanism of the human brain and the human mind to make sure it doesn't fracture it.
And I'll admit that I'm guilty of using the word coincidence quite a lot. and in terms of evidence, coincidental evidence and hearsay or circumstantial evidence, there's a lot of that is a lot of, we get what you're saying, but that's your opinion, and
yep.
We need something more to believe you. And that's kind of that's instilled in the law system, the legal system.
Yep.
So if in terms of direct evidence, how do we get direct evidence?
That is something I myself am still trying to find. Like with Zach, he created the paranormal museum that he has. The reason that's so interesting to me is because me and my partner, while we used to watch his series, we talked about it, trying to get some of the most haunted locations, but every type of technology that we have, filming it 24/7, because most times that people experience a paranormal encounter or an alien encounter, a crypto, everything else in between, it's always almost at that moment where they don't have something to shoot it. But if something is constantly being prevailed, which this goes into physics, which is that like the cat experience, if you put nuclear waste and a cat in the same box, it's technically dead and alive until the human eye observes it. I think that also goes into...
There's that curiosity and then that need to know. So then
Yep.
you mentioned ego and then id and all the other psychological elements that go into it, and it's hard. And I am one of those people that find it really. I'm like, as I brought up in that way. I went to school for policing. I'm an investigator. I do all these other things. So like following the facts and the lines are very instilled in my training, but sometimes things do happen that, even though I say it's a coincidence, I know deep down that it can't be, but it requires other coincidental things to happen that are, I know that are random, and I know that these random events aren't associated. So therefore this coincidence is gone, and that becomes circumstantial. And then that becomes direct evidence to me, but then I provide an opinion. So as an investigator, I'm not the only private investigator in the world. But when I put an expert opinion out there, I could still be wrong because my beliefs and my judgment and all these other things are in there too. So do you have a message for people like myself that kind of still need to have that nuts and bolts, so that way they can guide people in a positive direction, maybe not believe 100% all in, but to kind of encourage us to explore in a way that doesn't allow us to go,
off the deep ends.
Full consciousness, let's say that.
So for one, always keep one foot in the reality that we're in now, and then also in the spiritual world. But normally when you experience a full experience, something that is, we'll say in this sake of the conversation, abnormal and or like supernatural, it's not just going to be your mind or your eyes that react to it. It is going to be an instinctual react. It's going to be a physical reaction. It's going to be a mental reaction. You will know, just like when like you're a kid and you walk past like what is supposed to be a haunted house and you get that vibe like deep down in your gut, you should not be here. Like that more primal reaction. The same thing happens with paranormal or everything else in between when you experience that.
But if you feel uncomfortable, how do you know you shouldn't be there? You just feel uncomfortable.
Normally with like, I shouldn't be there, or, oh shit, like this is not something, it's that instinctual fight or flight, but you also completely paralyzed. Where as much as you want to run and scream, your physical body just cannot move because it's kind of just like in shock of what you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. And then normally, because as a witch, I have experiences, not every day, but I have experiences where like I question, oh my God, is this real? I don't know if this is scientifically fact, but a person who is completely out of touch with reality is not going to question that they're out of touch with reality.
Right.
So if you're sitting there asking yourself, wait, did this just really happen? And or like, am I crazy, or whatever term you want to use? That means that it did just happen, and everybody else experiences and or experiences other things that most people would be like, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen because they didn't physically experience it. With most people are like that. So that would be my advice. Just keep going and just keep searching for answers. Whether we're going to find those answers or not, you'll find clues, I guess.
All
and
right.
if you ever feel like you're in danger or you should not be there, try to leave ASAP.
All right. Wise words. So we made it. We're at the 2-hour mark. What we're going to do now is we're going to do an after chat. So for those of you that were in the comments, we're going to talk to you guys now and see and give you some updates of Tessa. Cece, are you good to go? Thumbs up. Perfect. So you,
yes.
if you want, you can participate in the comments as well on YouTube and join in the conversation. But that's it. So tell everybody how to find you one more time.
You can find me on most platforms, Fire Lotus the Witch, or click my link tree. That will take you to everything else. And on Facebook, it's also Fire Lotus the Witch. I also and my email is firelotusthewitch@gmail.com. And I also personally wanted to thank you for having me on.
No worries. Thank you so much. Thanks for go to Stacey. She's the one who set up the show. I don't know how she found you. Obviously, probably TikTok. I'm going to bet that you're one of the TikTok. She's always on TikTok, so that's good. So thank you, Stacey, for having
Yes, thank you.
You know, she openly admitted that she loves TikTok. So that's good. That's good. No, my pleasure. It's good. And full disclosure, you know, I didn't know so much about witches, so I kind of feel like this was Cece's attempt to put me out of my element. And we'll see how we'll get her comments when we do the after show to see how I did. But no, I enjoyed that, and I hope to see you again.
Yes,
and everyone commenting there, we'll see you in a little bit. We're going to play the exit, and then we'll see you in the after chat. So thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky, everybody, and heed the world.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the Ultra Spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heed the world.
Oh, hi. You're muted. You're muted.
Come on. Hi.
There you go. How you doing? How was that? How was that?
That was really good, Ryan. You asked some really good questions. I was impressed.
Thanks. Well, you started me off with a couple questions, and then I was like, okay, hold on. I think I can adapt to this, because at first I was like, you know, you're right. I don't really know too much about witches. I understand, you know, with you and Priscilla too. You guys obviously, I can see in the comments that you guys are now married. You know, so you guys are clearly vibing on this, and it is interesting too, because like, and I'll be honest, I always assumed that witches was just, and warlocks, you know, was the female and male thing. And I've had that conversation with Cece many times before, and Priscilla as well. And to actually have a conversation with a male in real time, it's like, you know what, you know, I'm judging, I'm wrong. I know nothing. So it was good. So thank you for setting that up, because then it was an experience for me too. Because I'm like, okay, because I start to connect, and as I learn how it's all connected, I lose these labels too. right? So it was I enjoyed that. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad
Yeah.
you did. Yeah, and
Me
Fire
too.
Lotus did amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic job.
So hopefully we see you in the comments. Say hello so we know that you're here. So
Yes.
who do we got tonight? Are we going to say hello?
Yes, we are. So
All
I'm just
right.
going to click on the start. So we have Space Cadet. He says safe place at the beginning of the conversation.
Good to see
So
you.
happy that you feel that
You changed
way.
your picture. Good to see you. Got a face to the name.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good point. We have Lisa Savoy. She says
Hi,
hello,
Lisa.
everybody. Myself. And then we have Cass Pangburn. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And I believe she came along with Fire Lotus. She's one of, she seems to be part of his crew.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Got Priscilla I can't even say her name. I'm married to her. McNamara.
McNamara. Echo needs to stop. Yeah. So we that was a team effort. She came upstairs to let me know that the echo was happening. I didn't realize it was happening all over the place, but we were able to figure it out live on the spot. Sometimes we don't have time to figure that out. We do a quick little troubleshoot. We just kind of got to wing it. But for those of you who stuck around, thank you for working with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's everybody who joined live today. So thank you for that and engaging in the discussion. And please let us know what you thought of our guests and the concept of witches in general.
Mm-hmm. So I started a couple of things here, like, so Cece is my wife now. And then you said, Ryan may not like that, but I do, LOL. And then she says, it's official. So do I get a vote? Where am I in this?
I don't think you get a vote. You could be like the best man or something.
Okay. All right.
Or you can try and work with my man Jacob and see what you guys can come up with.
Yeah, we'll be bros. All right. And so also Priscilla had mentioned, can we just ask Hecate for sisterhood? My altar is full of garlic and honey tonight. Let's go, girls. So the altar wasn't filled with honey and garlic when I started this podcast. I'm assuming you just did that now. Fun fact, I don't know what it is about this this Hecate. The last time Priscilla had made a sacrifice to her.
Sacrifice, or you mean an offering?
Or always say an offering. Sorry, thank you. Not a sacrifice, an offering. was when we got, I don't know what she asked specifically, but it's something about giving us truth and answers and things like that. And that's when I started to get this like influx of like the world is flat and Tartarians and all this other stuff out of freaking nowhere. It's where we found that 5-hour episode where I'm like, watch this, literally the night of. So in real time, if you really do have another offering out there, which I hope you don't, because I want to go to sleep tonight. I don't know what other level and layer I could really understand that goes beyond me thinking that the possibility that the Earth may not, may have a second sun and all these other things and blah, blah, blah. Because like it was in my dream. And then we Googled it later and we learned things and it's like, how do we know that? But anyways, I am curious, but also afraid.
I think that's rightfully so.
Because that shit works, and I can't say it's coincidental. Because I just know, like, things happen, right?
There's no such thing as coincidences.
I don't know. Cass said, what did he say? At least you get to be part of the wedding, so that's a plus, right? Yes, I suppose. I will give Priscilla away.
Oh my god,
boy.
I don't know. It doesn't have to be an official wedding or anything, but yeah,
there's a
we're
TV show called Dresden Files. I've never seen that. Have you seen that? What is that?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Let me see if I can do the old Google. Dresden.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
All right, let me just share my screen here, and then we'll. Thanks for bringing that up. I haven't seen it before, so let's learn together.
That's always fun.
The Dresden Jim Butcher. He sounds familiar. Novel series, like is it a book? Or is it?
Oh, is it a book? Yeah. He says it's a TV series. A TV show.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Mystery. 1 season.
A private detective who operates. I was just reading. You might actually really vibe with this.
That's the guy from Arrow. That's the detective from Arrow.
Is it?
Yeah. Private detective. Where'd you read that? Oh, right here.
It's on the side on the right.
Operates on the storefront in Chicago. Not your average PI. Harry is a practicing wizard who solves cases using otherworldly magic. Keeping tabs on Harry is Morgan, a warden from the governing body that supervises wizards.
Shit, if you work with him, that's where you're going to end up.
But it was in 2007, and it only had 1 season. Survey says that may not have been a very good show. But I'm totally digging that. Yeah, last time I seen this guy was in Arrow, so he's the detective. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin that because I did not actually see the last season of Arrow. But what else we got here?
We got Cass says, currently we do technically have a second moon.
Technically, where is said second moon? Second moon on Earth. Let's see what comes up there. How was the Earth's second moon discovered? Earth quasi-moon.
Oh yeah, that was
I forgot about that.
I totally forgot about that.
Kama Olawa. How do you say that? Was discovered 2016.
It was a Hawaiian term, yeah.
According to time, it measures at less than 50 meters across and orbits Earth in a corkscrew motion, traveling up to 100 times the distance a regular moon does. So how come we don't see it in this atmosphere?
That's a question I have. Maybe it's too small and we just perceive it as a star, not
Fire Lotus, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in for your great show.
Great interview. Yes, great show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're just talking about Earth's second moon. That I can't believe I forgot about this. I totally meant to do some deep dive research on it and beyond like what the initial news was, and I totally forgot.
Well, why can't we see it in the sky?
I don't know. I'm not an astrologer, but I don't know enough about it. I'm gonna look into it more.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not an astrologer either. I just we'll just Google, see what happens.
Astronomer, I meant to say.
All right. So in the news, we had Butter Tart Festival. So I got some pictures kind of preloaded here. Look at that. There's CC operating the Tessa tent at the Butter Tart Festival, which was last weekend, which was my birthday. And I got this birthday card from everybody. It's now part of my office decor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, right there. Pardon my armpit. So there's CC, womanning the table. We politically correct here. It looks like you're smiling. You're having a good time.
Yeah, I had a blast. It was so great talking to people and just seeing like the varied reactions. Like some people were just not wanting to be seen in that tent at all, and other people were all about it.
So this was also the first time we introduced to my local community a second business that we had. A lot of people probably didn't even realize that they're connected because everyone went to the Tessa tent, not the security tent, other than those who just needed a couple bandages. But at least it was, I think CC had the entertaining aspect of that. But these are also new tents that we tried and put some promotion and marketing to, which I'm quite happy with how they turned out.
They turned out awesome. And in the Tessa tent, you could look up and just see all the stars, which was fun.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a picture. I'm just trying to see if I have another one. So So the Butter Tart Festival is in Midland, Ontario. Is like I think we had record high of people. I don't even know what the number is. Probably like 50,000 or something really high. So we had a full team doing security there, and it was great. It was great. And then there you are, just chilling like a villain.
Yeah, there weren't too many breaks between people, so it was like take advantage of that.
So I don't know if Greg, the man brewer, still watches these shows, but I just want to kind of point out that your business is right here. And I don't know why you didn't come out and say, hey, hello to the Tessa table. Because you see these stickers on the table, which are all gone, by the way. Did you give all of those out?
No, there's still a few, not many.
That's all right. I was like,
still a few. I think I put them in that box there that's right in front of me with all the keychains and pins.
Yeah, so we have these little door knockers too, which are kind of cool little giveaways. Some brochures, which everyone wanted one of, and CC made those. She did such a good job that the Blacklight team is asking for her to do some for us, so that's good. No, it was good, and we met for the first time.
Yes.
I took this photo, like I was there.
Yes, he did.
You know what I realized is we didn't actually take a photo together.
I know, I realized that too after, but I'm so bad for it. I honestly took 2 pictures the whole weekend.
I'm just trying to see if I got anything else to show. So if there's anything else in the comments, let me know.
Okay. So Fire Lotus joined us. Everyone's saying hello to him. And then Space Cadet's talking about that show, I believe. He's an author, amazing books, and at TV show and books, they did a series of off the books, so it is a book series. Okay. I think the authors know something. It's kind of hard for them to do other series off the books because you just read the books and you'll see what I mean if you want to.
Okay, that makes sense. So I also did some... let me see if I can put this up here. I did some video too because I tried to get the Blacklight team. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I'm just trying to open it up in a different page because I didn't do prep and I don't want like...
Yeah, there was a good turnout at that event for sure. Oh yeah, your live video there.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear this.
I'll let you know.
Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
Not really.
Okay. No.
I can hear it muffled.
It's muffled? Okay. But anyways, there's some videos there. So you can check that out on our Facebook page and all these other things too. And then there's the table side by side. It was good. And good times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really enjoyed meeting your Blacklight team and everyone, you and Priscilla. It was a good time. I really, really had a good time. And that's rare for me when I'm in a group of people. Like, I didn't even have time to really consider how many people I talked to or anything because I was just so in the now moment and just like dealing with like what people were asking in that time. But it was funny because a few people thought I was psychic, and I took a selfie of myself in the tent and I posted it on my Twitter. And if you look right above my head, it says psychic.
I'll see if I can pull that up. Yeah.
It's like, no wonder people thought that. I had a few people ask me for a reading.
Is it this one? It's not the same, but like, see how it says psychic there?
Yeah, psychic.
Yeah, psychic phenomenon. Or you could have been a monster. Or a ghost.
Yeah. I just took a selfie of myself and it was like right under the word psychic. And it was first thing in the morning. Someone's like, "Are you a psychic?"
So what I thought was interesting with that too, and I was trying to be mindful tonight. I had my whole mindset. I'm like, I'm going to be good tonight because kids, there was the youth, the children, like, I mean, they were more gravitated towards that. And the parents were just like, yeah, we're not kind of into it, but our kids love it. So we're talking 11, maybe 12, 13, like in between that, really, the next generation were totally into it. They wanted brochures. They want to see this. And I'm like, I'm over there thinking like, kids, this is real. Like you're gonna have nightmares. This isn't like we're doing this like for real, not like Ghostbusters, but they were so fascinated and interested in it. And I got all self-conscious, and I'm just like, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna stop swearing. I'm gonna do things better.
You gotta do things better.
And then Fire Lotus there just dropped the F-bomb like crazy tonight, which is good.
Well, I told him he was welcome to, yeah.
But he was welcome to, and he was comfortable, and I'm just like,
You never told me. You never told me.
No, it's okay. No, we're not responsible for our guests. We let our guests have fun and let them do whatever they want to do. It's just, I was a personal thing thinking like, you know, these people take the brochure, they're going to go home, they're going to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and they'd be like, hey, that's the security guy. And then beep, right? You know what I mean? So I was just kind of taking a mental note that, you know what, the younger generation is interested, and it's a good thing to know, especially when we were talking about this being a transitional phase. That would be the next generation, and to see them welcoming it and the parents being supportive.
Yeah.
Was nice to see.
That was my favorite part for sure, and that's likely why most of the stickers are gone, because the kids were really into it, and I was like, "Here's the sticker."
Yeah, all these 13-year-old, 11 to 12-year-old kids putting stickers for a disclosure movement, not realizing they're enlisting in this this movement. But it's good.
I told them what it was about, and their parents were like, "Okay," and then one parent was, I want a sticker then if that's what it's about. So it was really well received. It was super cool to see that that visual response of how people are receptive to what Tessa's doing.
Oh yeah, like here I was thinking people were gonna like shame it. And they actually shamed Blacklight. They're like, "What are you guys doing here? Are you actually security, or are you just here like pretending?" There was one guy that said that. I was like, "You son of a bitch! Do you want help or not?"
Yeah, no, there was some good stuff there. Yeah. I was kind of wishing it was a 2-day event versus just a 1-day event, because there was so many people and so much going on.
Yeah, but if it was 2 days event, we wouldn't have been able to celebrate and have fun like we did the following night.
That's true.
And I'm pretty sure Corey and Leanne, who are not here right now, I'm sure you guys enjoyed that night quite well too. So it's all good.
Good times.
Space Cadet, you said hello. Are you saying hello to us again, or what's up? Oh, you're saying hello to Fire Lotus.
Fire Lotus.
Oh, you stepped out. You're back. And then what we got? Cass, Hang, Burn. Ironically, my dad would be the one to drag me to the tent that looked like yours and then talk your ears off about it. Not gonna lie. I'm assuming that's what NGL is.
Yeah, I think that is what it means. That makes sense.
I think I did see some parents do that too. They're like, "Oh no, we're not into our kids like it," but they're like, "Oh, can I get?" I do recall one moment, one of the kids taking a sticker, and then like the dad be like, "Can I get one of those?"
Yeah, that's what I remember.
But he didn't say anything the whole time. He was just totally being supportive, and then it's like, "Oh well, if you're gonna give them one, I'll get them."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was that, and then there was one person who literally came into the tent and was like, "My group of friends over there dared me to come in here."
But the funny thing is like hidden in plain sight. So this is an event where stuff like that shouldn't be there in terms of it's not normal. But what we did is I had this idea that, you know what, why don't we just put it in an environment where and act as if it's normal, and people that appeared to be normal gravitated towards it. So there's a weird one in all of us, in every single bunch. And it was nice to see how that just created this old culture and things like that too. And it removed the judgment. Like, I think, because my fears was them to not take my private investigating and security company seriously. But it didn't matter because, security's boring, I guess.
No, a few people asked the connection, right? And once I explained it, they're like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. I see it now," So it was interesting, the wide variety of reactions to it. But it, like you said, we made it normal. And I think that helped a lot of people in a way. And it helped me for sure. I wasn't sure how I was going to respond or what kinds of questions I was going to get. I expected a lot of hate, and that's not what I observed at all. And it was quite a relief.
And it might just encourage others to do the same. Every time we do something, they're all like, "Oh my God, why didn't I think of that?" Now everybody's going to do it, right? So it's good. We did it first. Cass says, "My dad would like you. My dad would be like you. Want to talk about UFOs? Well, actually, they're not called XYZ, and the Loch Ness monster's history is ABC. And I'd just be 11. Like, can we go?" Yeah. Okay. There's a lot to break down, but UFOs and well, 11 like Stranger Things that we're
Yeah, I think
that
that's
we're
what
talking
you
about.
mean. 11 like Stranger Things.
Yeah. Oh, Stranger Things is good too. I mean that shit's real. That shit's got to be real.
Well, Stranger Things kind of goes into the concept of, like, they call it the upside down, but it's sort of the in between as well, if you think about it. So,
Well, and we call it the ultra spectrum. Like it's Camp. Have you heard of Camp Hero?
it's sounding familiar, but I can't place it.
So Camp Hero's in New York, and that's where the Montauk Project took place. So like,
Okay.
Where all the things happen in Stranger Things, allegedly this is like the building in which all those things happen, because that's kind of the trace back to the government, CIA files and all that other stuff too. So these experiments did take place.
Yes, they did.
They did test on these people. They did do these things. But is there like an 11 out there? Are we 11s? Are we part of these programs?
Well, that's like genuinely part of my fear of coming out at the beginning, and still is sort of a subconscious fear that there's some kind of group monitoring for people with extraordinary abilities in order to test them like that.
I snagged this question here, or statement. Cass says, in the USA, they changed the name to UAPs at least. So UFOs are now called UAPs. So by they, that would be, I don't know, Lou Elizondo, the government. If you're new to the channel, so the UFOs and UAPs are the same. It's just different branding, because they're trying to separate machines from light. But it's unidentified flying objects and unidentified aerial phenomenon. Technically, they're the same thing. For Tessa, when we categorize them, subcategories machine and light for aerial activity. So we do use those archetypes to separate a UFO as actually a physical machine that has characteristics, that was engineered. It was piloted by something that a man could get inside, and then the orb is more of the paranormal spectrum. So UAP is kind of there, but the government is trying to say that the machines are UAPs, which implies extraterrestrial origin. But in reality, it's maybe a distraction from the possibility that UFOs are just government machines, and whatnot.
I still like the term UFO. I don't care if they're trying to rebrand it or what they're trying to do. I still like that term.
It's been UFO for so long. Why call it something different? Because then what do you use UFO for? The UFO is just done?
I hope not.
You can't just call it a UAP when, like, for the last 80 years, we've been calling it a UFO.
I think they changed it more for their government records to make it more challenging for people to put in a FOIA request or something like that and to find what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And now we're on to it. Now we know. And now they're actively stating it aloud.
They're also going to bury it. So if UAP becomes popular, eventually over time, UFO will be forgotten about. And whatever UAP is, which hasn't really been defined, means the old school ufology is dead. So they're burying it. Creating a new term, calling it something else, gets rid of the old terminology, but it doesn't change the fact that it exists. It's just a shift. Remember earlier in the show when I said I love talking about paranormal because ufology makes me angry? I wasn't lying.
Yeah, it's harder to, like you said, harder to define because it's not like that nuts and bolts characteristics. It's so varied.
The UAP allows us to accept the paranormal orb. It allows us to accept lights traveling and all these other things too. I like using UFO to define government man-made secret machines.
Mm-hmm. Nuts and bolts.
But it is also an unidentified flying object as a UAP. But then you got to look at the definition of flying and the definition of object.
Mm-hmm.
So aerial phenomenon includes energy, transmedium movements,
Mm-hmm.
whereas an object is solid mass. So it really comes down to, guess who's studying it, whatnot.
Yeah, it's
the
lens of the.
What's that all about? Was there something behind you?
I don't know. He said, "Whoa, CC, what was that?" And so I instinctively looked behind me, but I don't know what he meant.
Okay. Space Cadet, you say there's some company trying to trademark UAP. Look it up. It's in the U.S. Yeah, it's fucking Saucer or whatever, right? Is that what it is? Saucer Co. or?
Oh, that apparel company or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember, but.
Don't have to look it up. I'm aware of what you're talking about.
Yeah, a lot of people are upset.
UFO Twitter also makes me angry, but it's all right. But okay, so let's talk about trademark. So that's interesting because, like, on one hand, you got a business that decided to take a term that's not widely accepted and pay for the patent or the trademark so that way they can use it. Now, if anyone else says UAP and does all this other stuff, would they actually follow through and do trademark or copyright infringement?
Well, they can't stop us from saying UAP. Like, the government uses that term too. They can't stop us from saying it. All the trademark is their logo and the use of that acronym, I guess.
Well, that's the same thing. You have to have the whole kit and caboodle. I could say Tim Hortons, but I mean, until I use the whole brand. So this whole thing, it's not Tim Hortons that's trademark. It's this whole symbol. Not sponsored, by the way. So I have to say that. People get sad, but I mean, so that's that. This is American Eagle, right? Like, I mean, like, so.
You have to be able to say the brand name.
So the trademark would come in with the whole Saucer UAP or whatever he's doing as far as the image, or she, I don't know who owns the company, but
right,
the entire thing would be trademarked. This particular eagle might be trademarked by American Eagle. I don't know, depending on the image, but it's just an eagle. I think anyone could use it as long as it didn't say American Eagle.
Yeah, I think you're right. That eagle may be specific to that trademark, but I'm not sure. You'd have to look into each individual case, but it's not going to prevent people from using the term UAP. And it's just like for instance, we have Squatch soap or something like that. Like people, no one got upset about that, Or if I was to take the term Sasquatch and make a brand out of it and decide to trademark it, you can do nothing.
If Sasquatch might have had a problem, now he's further in hiding. Thanks.
Never come out now.
Never. Well, another example is I'm using the Canadian flags. Like, I'm representing Canada. I'm a citizen of Canada. Is that trademark infringement? Like, because I'm proud, to be a part of the nation. So it's tough, but I'm allowed to use the Canadian flag because I'm a citizen of, right? So the issue with these individuals is by trademarking, the assumption is that no one else can use the words and they don't want to have any backlash on it. But it's an apparel company. They make shirts, they make costumes or clothing. So it's a business. I'm pretty sure they're not the first people to put a UFO on a t-shirt.
No, but nobody else has taken a UFO on a T-shirt, made a logo or whatever, and then used the term UAP
But they also
or
put it
UFO.
on UFO Twitter, where it is a cesspool of violence.
Kind of, yeah.
Popped up out of nowhere. It almost seemed like someone was trying to take advantage of the situation too, right?
Yes. It was probably like, oh, this UAP thing is trending since that hearing, and maybe I can do something with this.
Which is nothing wrong with that, but I think we're missing an event where someone may have thought they were going to sue someone for using UAP, and then it just blew up.
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure.
Because, like, for them to just launch an apparel company and say we're using UAP and doing all that other stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. So,
no, I think you're right. Maybe somebody. I got the sense that somebody has tried this before, and it failed.
Yeah.
And now they're all up in an uproar because this person's successful now, or I'm not sure, but I got a sense of that.
Cass says, I see both arguments, to be honest, but also UFO could technically be a kite to a person who has never seen a kite before. Exactly. An unidentified flying object does not mean aliens. An extreme example, no, but it's a good example. There's fireworks, there's rockets, there's normal things.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with UAP could be said, right? Like, it's only unidentified until we can identify it. And, I think it goes to the person's state of mind at the time of observing it too,
All right, folks, we're at we're 7 minutes past our mandated time.
Are we? Okay.
But we can keep going if you want.
Hello.
Who's our guest for next week?
Next week is Lisa Savoy, who's in the audience right now, and she's going to come on to discuss.
We're going to talk about her book, and we're going to talk about new experiences. Our website is also fully loaded for those who haven't saw the new website yet.
Yeah, you can go to last episodes for the tinfoil hat party and see the whole walkthrough at the end during the after chat.
Yeah, and then there's a UFO here, which I call aerial activity. So, but this one is defined as UAP because actually, no, it's not. That's just a hashtag. But anyways, and you can also find right here. So depending on where you are, we're solely implementing events for you to check out. Oh, look at that. These crazy dudes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. It's, oh my God. I can't believe you added me as a TikTok addict. Just kidding.
I didn't ask you as anything. I was just like, I just made a guess. I feel like you found this guy on TikTok because I don't play a lot on TikTok.
No.
You do.
I've been following Fire Lotus for a while. Like when I first joined TikTok, the algorithm threw me right into witch talk, which I didn't even know was a thing. So it knew somehow I was a witch. And then I came across a bunch of practitioners, and Fire Lotus is by far my favorite. And I have actually reached out to them for spells, some custom spell work, and yeah, it's been good.
So reach out, have a conversation after the fact, because they're that teaching element I'm interested in supporting. The referral part is also interesting too, because we have experiencers that may or may not have psychic abilities that we need teachers to teach them on how to develop these abilities. And he's a content creator, so maybe put him on the spot if he's still here. If you got time in your busy schedule to do an alternative show, then we can have you represent the witches, or for a little bit, anyways, in the Experiencer Support Association.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely will reach out and we'll see where this goes. But I'm so grateful for Fire Lotus for coming on and sharing their knowledge and understanding of witchcraft, and it's forever growing with anybody who's in the craft. You're always developing, always learning, and they were very truthful to their knowledge and stuff. So I appreciate that very much.
Space Cadet says, I've already added it to my home screen, and I'm assuming that means the website, and that's good job. Everybody should do that. Perfect. Thank you. Everybody should do that. All right, so we're going to end it there. I'm falling asleep. I'm getting tired. Long day tomorrow. It's been a long day today.
All right. Give a kiss to my wife. And
I'm going to go down and probably see her full-blown ritual, wearing a robe and everything, so I could talk into, like, Hecate. I don't know. But right. I will try to do at least that.
All right, have a good night. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And as always, heed the world.
Heed the world. Are you going to press the end, or am I doing that?
You do it. You're the host today.
All right. Peace.